Okay, I think we are up and running. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Elizabeth Rodriguez, and I am a director for the Broward County Hispanic Bar Association. And I have the pleasure of interviewing Judge Carlos Rebollo, our December Judge of the Month. Thank you so much, Judge, for taking this time to speak with us.
Good afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez, and it's my pleasure to be here.
So as the December Judge of the Month, I thought we'd kind of start off on a festive question. I know that you are Cuban born and that you were raised in the great state of New Jersey, but do you have any kind of fond memories from growing up in the Northeast? You get snow up there, so.
Yeah, one of the customs that my family had, my mother's family was very lucky because there were 5 siblings and they all got out of Cuba around the early 60s. And then my grandfather, he was a Spaniard. He was Spanish citizen, as was my grandmother, so they didn't have any problems getting out. They actually relocated to Queens, Corona Avenue in Queens. People that are familiar with New York City, with Queens, will know Corona Avenue. Believe it or not, Simon and Garfunkel have a song where they mention Rosie, the Queen of Corona, and they're talking about Corona Avenue. But anyway, as is traditional with all the many Hispanic cultures, we celebrate the evening, the Noche Buena. Mm-hmm. And so we would do it over my grandparents' house. They lived in Corona, Queens. But the good thing about my grandparents lived on the first floor, and then my uncle, and he had 2 sons, my cousins. One was my age, one was 2 years younger. They lived upstairs. So it was a very family-oriented Christmas, and come rain or snow, and yes, we did drive in the snow many times from Newark to Queens, which takes about 45 minutes. But we would be there for Noche Buena, and yes, we would have lechon and all the other good stuff that Cubans and Puerto Ricans and many other Hispanics and Latinos have on Noche Buena.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a theme for a lot of people that I talk to is memories of Noche Buena with their family. Mm-hmm. In the article that I wrote, I mentioned Brother Robert Conway, which is someone that you've mentioned several times in the past as being a high school teacher that you had, that really had kind of introduced you to your interest in the law and what became your profession. Do you have any other mentors in your career that have kind of helped you to get where you are today?
Oh, I've had many. After I graduated law school and I went to Drake University, which is in Des Moines, Iowa, and I was, this is no knock on the state of Iowa, but I was really happy to get back to New Jersey. I definitely intended to practice in New Jersey, but I got the opportunity to clerk for a judge. His name was Juan Jose Dios. I said that right, Juan Jose Dios. John Joseph Dios. Dios is actually in Spanish pronounced Dios, and it means God. And he was a pro-state judge, and the prosecutors loved him dearly, and they called him Johnny God. But I clerked for him, and I really got to see for almost a year that he really wasn't pro-state, pro-defense. He was really more pro-fair trial, pro-doing the right thing. He taught me a lot about the law, about being prepared for court, and he probably taught me a lot more about life in general. And we had a relationship that was pretty close to, he was like a second grandfather to me. He passed a few years ago. And I've had other mentors like Judge Dimitri Reyes, who is in our federal district court. When he hired me here for the Broward State Attorney's Office, him and I developed a really good relationship. Judge Khan, who I tried many, many cases in front of, likewise, because when you try a lot of cases in front of these judges, you get the opportunity to see who you are kind of on the same page with, and Judge Khan, Judge Dimitri Reyes. I tried a lot of cases in front of both of them, and both of them were very, very good, and still are very good federal district court judges. And they used to be circuit court judges before they were appointed to the federal bench.
Right. And like you said, Judge Demetriou, he was at the state attorney's office too before he became a judge.
When I moved down here, and I knew with my experience in New Jersey that I could get a job in a public defender's office or a state attorney's office. Actually, I was supposed to go work for the public defender's office down in Miami-Dade, but I got a call from Judge Demetriou. At the time, he was the head of the felony trial unit in the state attorney's office. And him and I really, I interviewed with him first, and we really hit it off. It was like we just were on the same page. We understood each other. The state attorney, Mike Satz, at the time was trying a murder, first-degree murder, death penalty case. Went into his office. He had a couple of questions, and upon Judge Demetriou's recommendation, I was hired. Judge Demetriou later told me on that he wanted me to go to the felony trial unit right away, since I had already tried 20, 30 felony jury trials, but Mr. Satz wanted me to start in county court and be put on probation. That lasted about 3 months. I tried 4 cases down there, and I got moved right up. And that's when Judge Demetriou said, I wanted you to start in felony trial. I was overruled.
Speaking of being a judge and that experience, you are currently a judge in the juvenile division, delinquency, they call it. And you've talked a lot about how it's kind of the role of a judge is, it seems like your perspective is a little bit different being a judge over a juvenile courtroom than maybe what it might have been in an adult courtroom. You mentioned, I think, having to really take all of the factors and circumstances of a young person's life into consideration and trying to kind of help them. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned since being a juvenile court judge?
Yeah, it's, and I had, when I first started, I did juvenile dependency, which is a very, very tough division, and I have a lot of admiration for the judges that do that. And that was a mentor for me in dependency was Judge John Augustus Frusciante. He's retired. I don't know if you know Judge Frusciante.
I know the name. I don't believe I've ever met.
I will tell you 2 quick, interesting things about Judge Frusciante. Number 1, he is Puerto Rican and Italian. Number 2, and this is probably where he gets more fame from, his son is the guitar player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Really?
Yes, he is. And he is an amazing guitar player.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, yeah. Oh, he's amazing. But after this, you can go on YouTube and watch some Chili Peppers. And he actually has his own stuff that he does on, that's just his music.
Right.
He had a studio out in Hollywood, Los Angeles, wherever he lives.
Right.
He puts out a lot of his own stuff on his own when he's not with the Chili Peppers. And back to my original point, and Judge Frusciante was definitely one of the trailblazers, one of the great dependency judges that we have. And I learned a lot from him. And I realized he was doing it for 10, 12 years. And I'm like, how can you do that? I did it for 2 years and I was pulling my hairs. I was like, you know, I asked the chief judge to go to criminal because as a prosecutor and for 21 years, I said, well, let me see what it's like on the other side.
Right.
On the side. And so I did that for 3 years. And I did pretty much everything that I could do. And I said, you know what, it's time for me to move on. I did everything from drug cases to burglary cases to first-degree murder cases, capital cases, sexual battery cases. And then Judge Carlos Rodriguez and I had the opportunity to go to civil, and I wasn't too crazy about going to civil. He wanted to go to civil. He was in delinquency, and I said, well, we could work this out. Let's go talk to the chief judge. You go to civil, I'll go to your spot in delinquency. That's exactly what we did, and it worked out perfect because I've been there, I think it's 7 or 8 years now, and I've enjoyed it. It's different. It's half criminal. Yes, you have to give, it's a bench trial, so you have to be, you're the jury, and you have to decide the verdict, and you have to be fair. You have to give due process to the state and to the juvenile. But the other half of your job is, well, if he's found not guilty, there's nothing you could do. You say, you know, Johnny,
right.
Good luck to you. If he's found guilty, now it's like, well, how do I help this kid? What is this kid's problems? And how do I get them out of him, out of mom? And that's where it helps to have the Department of Juvenile Justice involved. There's a Broward County Predisposition Services that work with us to give them services and mentoring, counseling, and so forth. So that's the second part of your job. It's not just getting that due process trial, but it's also, now what do I do? Whereas in adult court, it's a lot easier. You have the guidelines and it's like he's either entitled to probation or he's going to prison. And it's called the criminal punishment. I honestly, I did that for 3 years. I always wanted to be a prosecutor. Was a prosecutor for 21 years. And one thing I wanted to make sure was that I was not a prosecutor as a judge and I was an umpire. And again, I gave both sides a fair trial and stuff. I hope I did the right thing.
Do you think that now, kind of in the circumstances that we all find ourselves in, everything having to be remote, even this interview, do you find it harder to really kind of have that same connection? And is it more challenging since everything has moved to the electronic format?
I think it is. I'm not used to this. I'm old school. It's not the same as being in the courtroom, having everyone present in front of you, listening from everybody. Yeah, we've all adopted because we had to, and we're all doing the best that we can, the lawyers, the judges, and it's, it's working so far. But I mean, and I hear a lot of the civil attorneys talk about where there's so much more that they can now do on Zoom, which is fine. I don't think that's ever going to happen in the criminal division. And I really don't think it's ever going to happen in the juvenile delinquency or dependency division, because you really need have that person in front of you, the parent, and see what's going on, what the dynamics are, and how can we fix it. Yeah,
absolutely. So on to my final question for the interview. Not too long ago, we got the bar results. A whole new crop of young men and women are going to be lawyers in Florida, unfortunately, during a very challenging time. I don't know about you, but I definitely never would have imagined kind of starting my legal career in like today's environment. So if you could give, kind of thinking about yourself when you were first starting as an attorney, when you got done with your clerkship, and kind of thinking of the young men and women who are kind of our newly minted lawyers, what advice would you give them, whether it be career advice or life advice or just managing the day-to-day with what we have going on?
I guess that depends on, there's so many different areas of the law, so it depends on what the individual, the law student's interest is, whether he wants, I wanted to be a trial prosecutor since I was in high school, thanks to Brother Conway. So that was easy for me. And one of the things about being a prosecutor is, number one, yeah, it's an honorable profession. You're the knight in shining armor, or, the woman with the queen's hat.
The white hat.
Yes. And you're up there and you are trying to do justice, whether that's prosecuting the guilty individuals or making sure that the ones that are not guilty are let go. But you're still an advocate. So it's an honorable profession. And if advocacy to me is amazing. I love it. It's about researching and, going in there and telling the court why your position is right. And I learned that from my contracts professor, who, it was first year, and he did the Socratic thing. And he asked one of the students, he said, this paper here, this paper is black, correct? And he goes, no, it's white. He goes, no, it's black. And he goes, you're a lawyer. If I asked you to argue that this is black, what would you say? He goes, it's black. And you got the point across, which is that lawyers are supposed to advocate ethically. Ethically is very important, which means that you can go in there and say, it kind of looks white, but I'm going to say it's black, because you do have to point out when the law is not on your side. And then you argue the law is wrong, and then you hope for the best. But it's very trying times. You've adopted, I've adopted, we've all adopted, either adapted to Zoom, to this virtual world. and there's no reason why the young law students that just took the bar, they
Mhm.
had to do it. And doesn't take away from the fact that it's an honorable profession if you do it right, and it's a good profession. I think it still has it's a profession for much growth, and I don't see anything coming of this other than better. We're all going to be more technologically advanced. The civil lawyers are now going to do a bunch of other hearings and stuff on Zoom,
Yeah,
which is what they probably prefer to do. And over on criminal, you can't do that. You can probably do some stuff, but you still
right.
got the defendant's entitled to be present at motions to suppress and stuff like that, you know, as a longtime prosecutor.
Yes.
So it hasn't. It's still the art of advocacy. If that's what you want to go into, you may
Mhm.
want to go into transactional law. That's fine too, learning about contracts. But at the end of the day, it's all about putting forth your client's position, and that's an honorable profession. And that's why you chose it, and that's why I chose it.
Absolutely. Well, that's about all we have for our time. So on behalf of the Broward County Hispanic Bar Association, I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for your advocacy, and for your efforts. I know you're definitely one of the members of the judiciary that you come to a lot of our events, and you're very supportive, and we very much appreciate that support.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Happy holidays to you and your family, and to everyone at the Broward County Bar Association.
Thank you, and have a good new year.